You know, there's something profoundly dangerous about seeing clearly. Not dangerous in the way we usually think of danger, with physical threats or immediate harm. No, this is something far more subtle and far more devastating. When you begin to see what others cannot, when you start to perceive the hidden patterns beneath social interactions, when you sense the unspoken truths that everyone has agreed to ignore, you cross an invisible threshold. And on the other side of that threshold, life as you knew it becomes impossible. You cannot go back. You cannot unsee what you've seen. And the people around you, the very ones you thought would appreciate your clarity, they will turn on you. Not out of malice necessarily, but out of something far more primal. Your vision threatens their entire world. But why? What is it about seeing clearly that makes you so dangerous to others and so vulnerable yourself? Let me tell you what happens the moment you start seeing beyond the surface. You walk into a room, and while everyone else is playing their parts, following the script, maintaining the comfortable fiction, you see the truth beneath. You see the fear hiding behind confidence. You see the pain masked by laughter. You see the desperate loneliness in the middle of a crowded party, and at first you might think this is a gift. You might believe that this clarity will allow you to connect more deeply, to help more effectively, to live more authentically. But here's what you haven't yet realized. Society isn't built on truth. It's built on agreed-upon fictions. And when you see through those fictions, when you can no longer pretend they're real, you become a threat to the entire structure. Think of it this way. We all participate in a kind of collective theater. Everyone has their costume, their lines, their character. The successful businessman, the devoted mother, the reliable friend, the struggling artist. These are roles, and we play them with remarkable consistency. But here's the thing about theater. It only works if everyone agrees to suspend disbelief. If everyone agrees to treat the performance as if it were real. Now imagine what happens when someone in the audience stands up and shouts, "But these are just actors wearing costumes. This isn't real." The entire performance collapses. Not because the person was wrong, but because they violated the fundamental agreement that makes the theater possible. This is exactly what you do when you see clearly. You're the person standing up in the middle of the performance, pointing out what everyone knows but has agreed not to mention, that we're all pretending. That none of this is quite as it seems. That beneath the polished surface, there's something much messier, much more uncertain, much more real. And people don't thank you for this observation. They don't appreciate your honesty. They turn on you because you've threatened the very mechanism that allows them to function. The agreed-upon pretense that makes social life possible. The first danger of seeing clearly, and perhaps the most immediate one, is isolation. But I don't mean ordinary loneliness. I mean something far more profound. When you see what others don't, you begin to live in a different reality. You're speaking a different language, perceiving a different world. And this creates a gap, a gulf between you and everyone else that cannot easily be bridged. Let me give you an example. You're at a dinner party, and everyone is having what appears to be a lovely time. But you can see the micro-expressions, the slight tensions, the unspoken resentments. You can sense that the host couple is on the verge of a breakdown, that the friend who's joking the loudest is struggling with deep depression, that the conversation about trivial matters is a desperate avoidance of what everyone is actually feeling, and you have a choice. Do you participate in the pretense? Do you laugh at the jokes, make small talk, act as if everything is fine, or do you acknowledge what you're seeing? If you choose the former, you betray yourself. You deny your own perception and participate in the fiction. But if you choose the latter, if you even hint at what you're sensing, the room goes cold. People become uncomfortable. Someone changes the subject. You're marked as intense, too serious, unable to just relax and have fun. This is the isolation I'm speaking of. You cannot connect authentically because others aren't available for authentic connection. They're in character, playing their roles, and they need you to play yours. but you can't anymore. You've seen too much. And so you find yourself alone, even in crowded rooms, perhaps especially in crowded rooms, because the crowd is engaged in a collective performance that you can no longer participate in. You're like someone who's suddenly become colorblind, trying to participate in a conversation about the beauty of a sunset. The words still make sense, but the shared reference point is gone. What's happening is that your perceptual reality has diverged from the consensus reality. Most people live in a kind of agreed-upon hallucination where certain things are seen and certain things are not seen, where certain topics are discussable and certain topics are taboo, where certain behaviors are interpreted in approved ways regardless of what's actually happening. But once you start seeing beyond this consensus, once your perception becomes clearer, you can no longer participate in the shared hallucination. And this makes you fundamentally alone. Now, let me tell you about the second danger, which is even more insidious. When you see clearly, when you perceive what others miss, you face a terrible dilemma with every interaction. Do you speak what you see, or do you stay silent? And both options are devastating in their own way. If you speak, you risk attack. Not physical attack usually, but psychological attack. You'll be called negative, overly sensitive, paranoid, dramatic. You'll be accused of reading too much into things, of creating problems where none exist, of being unable to just let things be. People will gaslight you, insisting that what you're seeing isn't there, that you're imagining things, that you're the problem. And the cruel irony is that the more accurate your perception, the more vehemently people will deny it, because you're threatening their defenses, their carefully constructed ways of not seeing what they don't want to see. But if you stay silent, if you swallow what you perceive and pretend not to notice, something else happens. You begin to lose contact with yourself. Every time you deny your own perception, every time you accept someone else's version of reality when you know it's false, you create a split in your being. Part of you knows the truth, but another part must pretend not to know it. This is a form of madness, quiet and socially acceptable, but madness nonetheless. Over time, this constant self-betrayal erodes your sense of reality. You start to doubt your own perceptions. You wonder if maybe you are too sensitive, too negative, too intense. Maybe everyone else is right and you're wrong. Maybe you're seeing things that aren't there. This doubt is corrosive. It undermines your confidence in your own experience, your trust in your own awareness. And here's what's particularly cruel about this dilemma. Both options, speaking and not speaking, lead to isolation. If you speak, others isolate you by labeling you and pushing you away. If you don't speak, you isolate yourself by severing the connection between your inner truth and your outer expression. Either way, you end up alone, separated from authentic connection, unable to be fully yourself with others. This is why seeing clearly is dangerous. It places you in an impossible situation where every choice has a cost, and there's no way to navigate social life without paying that cost. The only question is which price you're willing to pay, the price of being attacked for your honesty, or the price of attacking yourself for your dishonesty. The third danger is perhaps the most disturbing, and this is what I call the projection reversal. When you see clearly, when you perceive what's really happening beneath the surface, people don't thank you for your insight. Instead, they unconsciously turn you into the problem. They make you the cause of what you're merely observing. Let me explain how this works. Imagine you notice that there's tension in a relationship, an unspoken conflict, an elephant in the room that everyone is carefully avoiding. You point it out gently, trying to bring awareness to what's actually happening. What's the response? Often you're accused of creating the tension. You're told that everything was fine until you brought it up. You're blamed for making people uncomfortable. You're cast as the one who's causing problems. This is the projection reversal. What you've done is brought consciousness to something that was being maintained through unconsciousness. The tension was already there, but it was being managed by everyone agreeing not to see it. By seeing it, by naming it, you've disrupted this unconscious agreement. And so you become the threat, you become the problem, not the actual issue, but your perception of it. This happens because people have a deep investment in their unconsciousness. If they were to acknowledge what you're seeing, they would have to change. They would have to face difficult truths, have uncomfortable conversations, look at parts of themselves they've been avoiding. It's much easier to make you the problem. If they can convince themselves and others that you're negative, paranoid, or crazy, they can dismiss what you're seeing without having to look at it themselves. They can preserve their comfortable unconsciousness by scapegoating your consciousness. And here's where it becomes truly dangerous. When this happens repeatedly, when you're constantly cast as the problem for seeing problems, you begin to internalize this narrative. You start to wonder if maybe you are creating difficulties. Maybe you are too focused on the negative. Maybe you should just keep your observations to yourself. And in this way, they succeed in making you doubt your own clarity. They succeed in dimming your vision, not by proving you wrong, but by making you afraid to see. This is a profound form of gaslighting, and it's extraordinarily effective because it uses your own sensitivity against you. You care about others, you don't want to cause problems, so when you're told you're the problem, you take it seriously. You examine yourself, you doubt yourself, you try to be less perceptive, less aware, less clear. And in doing so, you betray the very gift that allows you to see clearly in the first place. Now we come to the fourth danger, and this one is subtle but devastating. When you see clearly, when you're aware of dynamics and patterns that others miss, you become a kind of emotional lightning rod. You absorb the unconscious material of everyone around you without even trying. Other people's feelings, their hidden anxieties, their repressed emotions, they somehow find their way into your awareness. And if you're not careful, if you don't understand what's happening, you mistake these feelings for your own. Let me describe what this feels like. You wake up feeling fine, centered, at peace. You go about your day, and then you spend time with someone, a friend, a family member, a colleague. And after that interaction, you notice you feel anxious or sad or angry. But here's the thing, nothing happened in the interaction to cause these feelings. The conversation was pleasant, the person seemed fine, yet you're now carrying these heavy emotions and you have no idea where they came from. What's happened is that you've picked up on something beneath the surface. That person who seemed fine, they were carrying anxiety or sadness or anger, but they weren't conscious of it. They had it buried, defended against, locked away. But you, with your heightened perception, you sensed it. And because you're open, because you're aware, you absorbed it. This is exhausting beyond measure. Imagine never quite knowing which feelings are actually yours and which ones you've absorbed from others. Imagine walking into a room feeling perfectly fine and leaving feeling inexplicably depressed. Imagine taking on everyone's unconscious emotional material without any of them being aware they're projecting it onto you. This is what it means to be a clear seer in an unconscious world. You become a repository for everyone else's denied feelings, their shadow material, their unprocessed emotions. And the cruel part is that when you try to talk about this, when you try to give back what isn't yours, people deny it. They insist they're fine. They project onto you the very feelings they're refusing to acknowledge in themselves. And so you're stuck, holding emotions that don't belong to you, unable to return them, unable to explain what's happening. Over time, this can become genuinely dangerous. You can lose contact with your own emotional center. You can become so overwhelmed by other people's unconscious material that you have no clarity about your own state. You become like a sponge that's absorbed so much water it's forgotten what it feels like to be dry. And the only solution is to develop extremely strong boundaries, to learn to distinguish what's yours from what belongs to others, to protect yourself from this constant influx of unconscious material. But this requires even more isolation, more distance, more separation from the very people you might have hoped to connect with. Let me tell you about the fifth danger, and this is where it gets particularly paradoxical. When you see clearly, you threaten people's identities. And when you threaten someone's identity, they will defend themselves, often viciously. Here's why. Most people's sense of self is built on a carefully constructed story. I'm a good person, I'm successful, I'm a loving parent, I'm spiritually evolved. These stories require a certain blindness to maintain. A good person can't see their own cruelty. A successful person can't acknowledge their deep insecurity. A loving parent can't recognize their unconscious resentment. A spiritually evolved person can't admit their ego's still running the show. These blind spots aren't accidental. They're necessary for the identity to hold together. But when you see clearly, when you can perceive what people are hiding from themselves, you represent a threat to these carefully maintained self-images. You're the mirror that shows what they've been refusing to see. And mirrors that show unwanted truths get smashed. Not literally, of course, but psychologically. You'll be criticized, dismissed, avoided, attacked, not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And being right about what someone is hiding from themselves is the most dangerous thing you can be. Think about it this way. Someone has built their entire identity on being calm and spiritual. But you can see the rage beneath the calm, the grasping beneath the spiritual pretense. You don't even have to say anything. Your mere presence, your awareness, it's enough. They sense, perhaps unconsciously, that you see through them, and this is intolerable. Their whole identity is at stake. So what do? They attack your perception. They make you the problem. They project onto you the very qualities they're denying in themselves. The person who can't see their own anger accuses you of being angry. The person who can't acknowledge their own judgment calls you judgmental. The person who's deeply unconscious labels you as unaware. This is classic projection, and it's deeply disorienting when you're on the receiving end of it, because you know what you're seeing. You can sense the disconnect between what the person claims to be and what they actually are. But when you're told that your perception is the problem, when you're attacked for seeing clearly, it creates a profound confusion. Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Am I the one who's wrong? This is the danger. Clear seeing threatens not just people's comfort, but their very sense of who they are. And people will do almost anything to protect their identity, even if it means attacking the person who's merely seeing truth. Now we come to what might be the deepest danger of all. When you see clearly, you lose the ability to participate in the beautiful unconsciousness that makes life bearable for most people. And this is a genuine loss. Let me explain what I mean. There's a reason people maintain their blind spots, their agreed-upon fictions, their collective pretenses. These things provide comfort, stability, a sense of meaning and continuity. When you don't see too clearly, you can believe in simple narratives, good guys and bad guys, right and wrong, success and failure. These categories make life manageable, comprehensible, navigable. But when you see clearly, all these neat categories dissolve. You see that the good guy has shadow. The bad guy has humanity. Right and wrong depend on context and perspective. Success and failure are judgments, not realities. Everything becomes complex, nuanced, uncertain. And while this might be more truthful, it's also more difficult. There's a real grief in losing the simplicity of unconsciousness. There's a genuine price to pay for clarity. You can no longer take comfort in the stories that comfort others. You can no longer find certainty in the beliefs that provide certainty to everyone else. You're left in a much more ambiguous, much more uncertain space. And this uncertainty can be profoundly unsettling. Most people avoid this unsettling awareness by choosing comfortable unconsciousness. They'd rather not see too clearly, not question too deeply, not examine too thoroughly. And there's wisdom in this. Sometimes unconsciousness is a mercy. Sometimes not seeing is a kindness we give ourselves. But once you've started seeing clearly, you don't have that option anymore. You can't choose unconsciousness. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unsee what you've seen. And so you're left in this difficult space where life is less comfortable, less certain, less simple than it is for others. This is the price of clarity. Not enlightenment, Not special powers, not superior understanding, just the loss of the comforting stories, the simple certainties, the easy categories that make life manageable. And sometimes, in moments of deep honesty, you might wonder if the price is worth it, if seeing clearly is such a gift after all. Because what good is truth if it isolates you, if it makes you a target, if it costs you your peace of mind? This is the question everyone who begins to see clearly must eventually face. Is the truth worth the cost? And there's no easy answer. But here's what I want to tell you, and this is crucial. The danger of seeing clearly only remains dangerous as long as you're trying to stay connected to those who refuse to see. As long as you're trying to fit into a world that requires unconsciousness for participation. As long as you're expecting others to appreciate or validate your perception. Once you accept that you see what you see, once you stop trying to convince others or justify your perception or tone down your awareness to make others comfortable, something shifts. The danger doesn't disappear, but your relationship to it changes. You're no longer surprised when people don't want to hear what you see. You're no longer devastated when you're attacked for your clarity. You're no longer confused when people project their unconsciousness onto you. You understand this is how it works. Clear seeing in an unconscious world will always create friction. But you're no longer trying to eliminate that friction. You're no longer trying to make everyone comfortable with your awareness. You accept that some people will be uncomfortable, and that's okay. You accept that some relationships will fall away, and that's okay. You accept that you'll spend more time alone, and that's okay too. Because the alternative, dimming your awareness to maintain relationships that require your unconsciousness, that's not okay. That's a betrayal of yourself that's ultimately more costly than any external danger. So here we are, having explored the dangers of seeing clearly, the isolation, the impossible dilemma of speaking or staying silent, the projection reversal, the emotional absorption, the identity threats, and the loss of comfortable unconsciousness. These are real dangers, genuine costs. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Seeing clearly will make your life more difficult in many ways. You'll lose friends, face rejection, spend time alone, question yourself, wonder if it's worth it. But here's what else happens. You become real. Not the performance of realness, but actually real. You live in truth even when truth is uncomfortable. You trust your perception even when others deny it. You honor your awareness even when it costs you. And in that realness, in that truth, in that honoring of your own clear seeing, there's a kind of integrity that nothing can touch. The world might reject you, but you haven't rejected yourself. Others might not see what you see, but you haven't betrayed your own vision. You might be alone, but you're not abandoned by the one person who matters most, yourself. This is what makes the danger worth facing. Not that it becomes safe, but that you become whole. The danger of seeing clearly is real, but the danger of not seeing, of choosing comfortable blindness, of betraying your own perception to maintain belonging, that danger is far greater. It's the danger of losing yourself completely, of becoming a stranger to your own awareness, of living a life that isn't yours. And once you understand this, the choice becomes clear. See clearly, face the dangers, pay the price, but remain yourself. Or choose blindness, maintain comfort, keep your relationships, but lose your soul. Most people choose the latter without even knowing they've made a choice. But you who are drawn to these words, you who recognize this dilemma, you've already started seeing clearly. And there's no going back now. The only way is forward, into greater clarity, greater truth, greater realness, whatever the cost. This is your path now, dangerous and difficult as it is. And I won't tell you it gets easier, because it doesn't. But I will tell you this, it's worth it. Every moment of isolation, every attack, every loss, it's all worth it for the simple fact that you remained true to what you see. You didn't dim your light to make others comfortable. You didn't betray your perception to maintain belonging. You saw clearly and you honored that seeing. And that, ultimately, is all that matters.